Nikolai Zabolotsky. Lodeinikov. In the land of wonders, of living plants, displaying a wisdom yet imperfect, why do you, inquisitive soul, seek new impressions and new conflicts? In life, appearances are deceptive. Do not be seduced by the illusion of peace. The hour will come, and the fateful morning will dazzle you, blotting out your dreams. Lodeinikov, covering his face with his hands, lay in the garden. Evening was approaching. Below, the cowbell rang as the herb returned, mouthing its inarticulate memories. The cold breath of the grass streamed along the road. A beetle rose. Lodeinikov uncovered his face and gazed at the grass that stood before him in a wall of vessels, gleam of flesh and vein. And all this flesh, trembling, grew, and a hum went through the earth, its nodes crackling as it shuffled along, moving in a strange manner. The great forest of grass spread rightwards, where the bright sun was sinking, and then there was a battle of grass, of plants, a silent battle. Some, drawing themselves out into fleshy funnels and casting their leaves, crushed others underneath them, and their strained articulations exuded a thick mucus. Some found ways between the leaves of others, while others lay on their neighbours, as in bed, dragging them down, wearing them out. At that moment, the beetle piped upon its flute. Lodeinikov awoke. Over the village rose the misty crescent of the moon, and gradually the murmuring of the grass and of the stillness turned to song. Nature sang. The forest, raising its face, sang with the meadow. The bright body of the stream rang out like a bell. In the pale mist, grasshoppers shook their dry limbs, beetles stood in black agglomerations, their voices brittle as twigs. His limpid glasses glittering, the handsome Sokolov walked in the meadow, pensively strumming a guitar. Flowers brushed against his boots and bowed low. Small, hurtling creatures thudded into his chest and away. Frantically leaping up, they dropped. But Sokolov trod upon his offal indifferently and continued on his way. Lodeinikov began to weep. About him fireflies lit their lamps, but his mind, alas, was playing hide-and-seek with itself, defying common sense. In his hut, seated at the table, he mused, filled with melancholy. Already dusk had gathered. Nocturnal birds called plaintively. Light flickered through the windows, and the apple trees, in an uncertain radiance, stood like graven images risen out of the mists of antiquity. A flickering light split from the hut and spread itself, so that each petal in the hazy foliage stood out like a limpid cup, open to the east. And the wonderful plant, so dear, put each of us in mind of an unblemished work of nature, made for unblemished eyes. Lodeinikov pored over sheets of paper, and at that moment a huge worm appeared to him, seizing a sheet between iron teeth and darting back into the darkness. So this is the harmony of nature. So this is the nocturnal voices. So this is what the dark water babbles of. The forest whispers and sighs. Lodeinikov listened. Over the garden hung the blurred rustle of countless deaths. Nature, transformed into a hell, was about its simple business. The beetle ate the grass, the bird pecked the beetle, the polecat sucked the brain from the bird's head, and the fear-distorted faces of the creatures of the night peered up from the grass. Nature's everlasting winepress blended life and death organically, but the intellect was powerless itself to mingle these two mysteries. The moonlight flowed from beyond the cornice, and rouging her ashen face, Larissa, the careful heiress, stepped outside wearing a gawky bonnet. Lodeinikov was not for her. She wanted song and happiness and mirth. He was morose and dull. Beyond the river danced a motley band of girls. There Sokolov paraded with his guitar. He sang them songs. Run, run to him. He mocked each lovely pair, and, like a god, he kissed them every one. The bleak, worn face of autumn sorrows. Downcast, the silent plants are sleeping. Above the roofs of the deserted village, a cloudy sunset palely glows. The doors of the cottages are shut, the gardens deserted. The fields are lifeless, the frozen ground beneath the trees is piled with a glittering heap of curls. The sky is overcast, and the wind blows in our faces, arching the canopied trees. Oh, listen, listen to the leaves applauding. Mighty back perches in every tree, and in every stone Hannibal hides. And now Lodeinikov can't sleep at night. Before him, in the orchestral gales, he hears the forest's music, grieving, passionate. Once, at the station, on a rainy day, he took his leave of young Larissa. How poor Larissa had changed. All that had graced her youth, she'd, on some strange impulse, surrendered to a casual acquaintance. The traces of her tears still showed in Sokolov's cold spirit. Into the world of the past, the autumn wind erupted, smashed, scattered and bore it off. Ah, Lara, Lara, foolish Lara! Who could have helped you, my sweet? Through your life passed his guitar, and that voice, slow like the night. The oaks that night rustled so pleasantly, the lilac and the cherry are in bloom, and the nocturnal songsters sang to you, as though you were a bride indeed, as though, indeed, this sparkling garden were covered with a silver bridal veil, and only the bittern boomed till dawn beyond the river and sobbed violently. For the last time, Lodeinikov, bent double, like an impotent old man, gazed sadly and lovingly on her dear face from the silent depths of his carriage, and the train set off. But the voices of the plants carried after it, swaying and trembling, and through the deep darkness of conciliation, the vegetable kingdom's immortal soul plunged on. Time sped past, hour after hour, and a great city suddenly appeared in open country and sprang to life, glittering with lights. The elements of the uncoordinated world now joined together, as though, putting the forest instruments through their paces, a new conductor had come into his own. He changed the church organ of the rock to a pit face. The orchestra of rivers turned into the iron turbine, and turning the plunderer from his preying ways, exalted now like a good giant. And already the first harmonious note blended with the dissonant voice of nature, as though the waters suddenly had sensed that their grave malady was not fatal, as though the grass suddenly had sensed that in the world the sun shines endlessly, forever, that they are not the righteous of the universe, but only he is, the great worker of wonders. The bleak, worn face of autumn sorrows, yet in the centre of the night sky, nature, your star is shining, and together with it shines my soul.